Thanks for joining me. This is video 3 of 4 in my series on using Content Manager with Elasticsearch. In this video, I'll show how to use Logstash to pull a ServiceAPI endpoint for records to be destroyed so that Elasticsearch can present via Kibana some good dashboards on the whole disposition process. To get started, I've got the whole same environment that I had in the last two videos, but now I've added ServiceAPI into the mix, and I'm showing you in the browser currently right here. This is the ServiceAPI endpoint that I've set up for the demo database. If I start off and I go and use the embedded record browser here to perform a search, I can show you that I'll receive the same results that I had received within the last two videos, really. So if I just do a search here on destroy date, the exact same range, you'll see that the results come back. And if I tweak the URL here, I can see that if I do a format equals JSON, I can get back some JSON results. So this is a REST API endpoint that I can now leverage using the Logstash input plugins. So in this case, here's my 177 results, and what I want to do is I want to point Logstash to this, but I have a couple of issues. One, I don't want to have to embed this inside of Logstash, the search string itself. And two, I want to be able to control who can access this page. So I'm going to go ahead and flip on over to my hptrim.config file for the ServiceAPI site that we just looked at. And what I'm going to go in here and do is I'm going to uncomment the example route, custom route that's added in here. This is what you'll see out of the box is an uncommented, bit of code here at line 55. I'm going to change this and I'm going to call this retention. And I'm going to change my query to the same one that I just had, which was destroy on 11-1900 to 11-2050. I'm going to change my properties. I don't want just the title, I also want the record number. And what I can also do to just save some time here is if I open up a new browser window and I go to that same one here, I can go to my property and field definitions and I can find the name of fields that I want. So for instance, if I want disposition, or let's say I want my schedule name, record disposition schedule, that field, if I want to return that, I would go to here and just copy and paste and just keep doing that for each of the fields that I want. So if I want date created, there's date created. If I want registered, there's registered. So I copy each of these fields over. And then let's say also destruction. Maybe I want record destruction date. So I'm going to get just a couple of fields. Oh, and then I also want the schedule. So let's do retention schedule. There we go. So now I've got a custom route defined. One last thing is I don't want to have to page through a lot, so I'm going to set the page size to 100,000. If I go ahead and save this, close, go over to my my Content Manager instance, I just have to reset IIS because that new route won't take effect until that configuration file is loaded. So just after doing a reload there, I should be able to just check that this page is, the server's back up by just hitting refresh. Sorry, I want to hit refresh, and if the page loads, then the server's back up. What I'm going to do after this is now I'm going to, yeah, there we go. So I've got my results, right? Notice here, the reason I did this whole custom route is notice that if I just leave this the way that it is, I don't get all the properties that I want. So I want to control everything. I don't want to have to somebody put anything in the URL. I just want to be able to now go to retention. And if I do that, I can see that the results that are going to be returned are just the ones that I want a Logstash to ingest and just the fields that I want to ingest. If I again change this format to JSON, you can see that my results now include for every single record these all important destruction fields that I want. I've got the date created, registered, disposition schedule, yada yada yada, right? This is all in here. What I can do now is I can point Logstash to this URL, and that's what I'm going to do. I've got a if I go ahead and flip on over to my Logstash server, this is an Ubuntu server. Sorry, I can't talk. I've already got an example a Logstash configuration file. I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to copy my retention configuration file to demodb.configuration file. And if I take a look at this, this demodb file, I'll just give you a quick few glances at it. What's in here is you can see I've got three things inside of this: an input, an input section, a filter section, and an output section. In the input section, I'm using the embedded HTTP poller plugin. This is one supported by the Elasticsearch stack. And in it, I tell it the URL that I'm going to poll, which in this case is the one that we just saw in the browser. I'm going to have it return JSON by sending in a header. I've got it on an immediate schedule, but eventually if you did this in production, you would change this to something like this, where you do every day at 5 minutes after midnight. That pattern is a little weird. I'm just going to do it like this for now so I can run it manually. The really critical part here is the filter. The filter allows you to transform the fields that come back from JSON. So in this example, if I flip on over to the page again and I look at the results, this is what comes back, right? I get a JSON object with a property called records, and that property, sorry, I'm trying to get back to the top here. That property called records has in it an array of objects, and each object has all of these fields inside of it. So here's an object, right? What I did with the input filter is I mutated. So here you can see I mutated, and I created flat columns inside of Elasticsearch. So there will be one column for each one of these in the Elasticsearch index. And I parse from within the embedded object each of those fields. Then I remove all the extra fields. You can see I'm removing trim type, count, etc., because these are all fields that are here at the top of the parent document. I don't want those. I want a row inside of Elasticsearch for each of the results. So that's what this filter does, and then I output everything to it. If I go ahead and just save this and close it, which actually I can't save here because I didn't open it for that. Okay, so if I go ahead and just run this now, if I run that configuration file, I should be able to do a sudo logstash f user shared logstash and demodb.config. That should work. Okay, it's going to take a moment to boot up and run. What I can do now is go over to my Elasticsearch head, and what I'll end up seeing inside of here is a brand new index called retention. And then I'll have all of those fields: the owner, the title, the number, the date created, the date registered, the date due for destruction, or the retention schedule, and the disposition state are all in columns that will be available to Elasticsearch. And then I can use Kibana to chart those. By using Logstash in the Elk stack to do this, it can be run on a schedule, and like I showed, you can run it 5 minutes after midnight every single day, and then have Elk automatically updated. There we go. We can see these are all the results that are being pushed into Elasticsearch. That's only there because my standard output includes the Ruby debug setting. So if I refresh over here, I should see there's my retention. There's 177 documents in this index. If I browse to it and I pick it, I can see that each one of these documents is flat, and I have inside of it some data. There, it looks like, you notice here's a couple issues. One, owner. I don't think I included owner location when I did that inside of my configuration file, so no big deal. Actually, that is a big deal because that's actually what I wanted to demo to aggregate on. So what I need to do is delete this, then go back to my here we go, my ServiceAPI, which I actually opened up inside of here, and I need to add in record owner location. Save that, go back to my ServiceAPI, reboot it, and then I can come back into here. Okay. Now, one last time, I can run this reindex. Or not the reindex, but run Logstash to have it pull it again. And then Elasticsearch will have all my fields. Instead of looking at it directly in Elasticsearch, I can go ahead and now open up Kibana and go ahead and define my indexing pattern or get started for it. I'm going to create a new indexing pattern. This time I'm going to call it again retention. And then we'll just give it a brief second here to finish. And there we go, it's finishing. So if I go back to here and I pick this, I should be able to find now retention. which it did. Note here, now I've got destroy on as my timestamp. I can create that. If I now go create a visual, let me just stop this for a second. I'm running in interactive mode. If I create a visualization and I do a, let's say a vertical chart, I can pick now retention. I can add in my splits, an x-axis, go to my significant terms. I can pick, let's say ownership, owner keyword, play. And then now I can use my time range to do analysis. And there we go. Here's the authority, Brian McBinary, research, number of counts. If I now actually make this instead of a buckets, I do a split series for the same type of thing for owner. And then I add in as a sub bucket, I do the x-axis is a date histogram of destroy on, and I want it by year. If I play that, now we can see every single year, 2007, 2009, the percentage of things that are to be destroyed in 2009 are vastly by the authority. This is going to be what my next lesson will be on. All of the different types of charts and visualizations and dashboards we can actually create. Now that this is in play, I don't ever have to do anything. I just enable Logstash to run on a consistent basis, and I can go over to Kibana and start picking some really powerful dashboards. Thanks for joining.